And as soon as the revolution was finished, I found that they were constituent members of Turkey Creek Baptist Church in Abbeville County, South Carolina. I believe it was South Carolina. Anyway, and I went there, and I got to see the church.
Oh, wow.
You know, the old church building. And then it was Turkey Creek Baptist Church, and they were members there. And the church sent 6 men and 5 women out to establish Poplar Springs Baptist Church. And of course Thomas and Williams, and they established Poplar Springs Baptist. And Thomas was William was the deacon, and Thomas was the church clerk. He was when I was descended from Thomas. Anyway, and I traced it all the way down the generations, and it's been Baptist all the way down. And then on my mother's side, they've been Methodist all the way down.
Yeah.
You know, now my daddy's mother was Methodist, but Grandpa would go to church with her a while, and then later they went to a Baptist church. You know, the Methodist and the Baptist.
So they kept the line all the
Yeah,
way down.
they kept the line all the way down, and it doesn't make any difference like which denomination you're from. Just so you know, you believe the Bible. You know, that's what counts.
That's what, yeah. Totally.
And so we've got along fine. So our family's basically Methodist and Baptist. You know, both lines all the way down.
Straight from the Revolutionary
From the
War.
Revolutionary War.
And when you did your genealogy, though, you were telling me, and this is where I was confused, you were telling me you filed it in the library versus with the county. Why would you file it with the library?
Okay, I had studied in the county library,
Right?
and then I got Ancestry.com, and so I did a lot of research on that too. So I went back and forth to the libraries, Ancestry.com, for my genealogy.
Right.
You know, to do that. But then on this other is a different thing, because you know, the genealogy, you've got to get it from Genealogy Library or Ancestry.com or somewhere like that.
That's where you have to have it from?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, that's where it's basically where you go to find it. You know, is where it is.
Because I know you have everything certified and...
Oh yeah. Okay. Now, what I did that was to prove who I am.
That's...
Because when you start suing the government,
Right.
which I did,
Right.
well then I established who I was and who I am.
But who are you and how did you establish who you are? That's the main question
Yeah.
that most people around the world are asking. When you go to court, who do you say who you are and how do you establish who you are? That's
Yeah.
the first
Well, I've got
question.
it on here. What I did here is, of course, my genealogy. I filed my genealogy at the Fort Bend County District Clerk's office. So my genealogy is there. And then I got a certified copy from them.
Okay.
And then I took the top line, rather than all my, people don't want to read all my genealogy,
Right.
but just the top line, so, and I filed the top line. And I've got it on here in this book.
And so you filed that with the county as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so they will know who I am. And I'll tell you something else interesting here on my studies. All this deal about having to have a driver's license, a social security card, is nothing but legal plunder. It's all it is. So, because I had studied into that. Because,
Right.
like I said, my dad was basically a scholar,
Right.
and I guess I got it from him. But anyway, I did all my genealogy and all my studies and everything, and so I decided that I'm going to sue the government.
Amen. Wow.
And I did.
Which
And I got it
government?
in here.
Which government did you start off with?
The Fort Bend County.
Fort Bend County.
Yeah. I've got it all in here.
How many different government agencies did you go to?
Let's see. Well, I think I like I said, I've got it all here. I got to go back to my memory, but I believe it's Fort Bend County first, and I guess maybe Harris County.
So you just went county to county and then
Well,
you rose up?
Harris County is Houston, and we're in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to school in Fort Bend County. Across the street's Fort Bend County,
Mm-hmm.
and this side of the street's Harris County.
Right.
So this is Houston, and that's Sugar Land, across the street. So I went to school in Sugar Land. But I've got it all in here, and it's all in this deal. And I'll give you one too. I gave him one.
Oh,
I'll
it's
give
I
in
you
the
one
know.
to see
I'm
this.
ready to look at the CD and
You ready to
Yeah.
look at
Sounds
CD?
like all the answers are in
I've
the CD.
got it in my
Yeah.
backpack
Did
already.
I give you one?
Not yet. So what were you suing the government for?
Let me look at this one and see.
How
if
did they wrong you?
Yeah.
Huh?
She's got to go through her
Yeah.
notes, but she'll.
Yeah, we're gonna mob you with questions.
Oh, okay. Well, that's-
I told you they're
go right
curious.
ahead. Well, that's good. I'm glad because somebody else can take on this battle. That's me. I'm getting too old.
Yeah.
Let me take this here. Come on, pull up here. Now, come in now.
You get an
Okay.
electrical?
That's the thing. The only thing difference about this is I've got on here I did America the Beautiful. See, I started this book out with America the Beautiful, and then A Visitor from the Past, which starts out as a song, but it goes into it's a poem, not really a poem. A guy wrote it.
Right?
It's about a visitor from the past. It tells about our past. And then the next one was
Sorry, Lord.
one more, I think, which what it was. Poplar Springs Baptist Church. The second was Poplar Springs Baptist Church, and that's one. It kind of tells about ancestry a little bit, and that kind of leads in. But this one I had done other songs. And I got thinking, well, people know all those songs, but this was one got of the songs, so you don't have to listen to other songs if you don't want to.
That
This
gives
one-
you a basics of what you're
Huh?
doing, and you
Yeah.
got to start at the basics. You really
Yeah,
do.
well, it starts kind of at the basics, but I'm gonna give y'all CDs of these other songs. But his will have it on here. These on here. I'll give him one of those too. But anyway, this it comes on down to after that acknowledgments and memory of Clifford Williams. And let me pull him up here, and I'll show you Clifford Williams.
Yeah, because I've heard
He
about
was
him.
really a great guy. Let me find, here's this my acknowledgement of him. And here he is. See here, he's a decorated war hero. He was really a good guy. Really good. Good Christian.
Everybody talks
Good
highly of
patriot.
him.
He really was. He really was a loss. And this was at his funeral. I went to his funeral. I sang at his funeral. That was hard to sing at his funeral. But anyway, and then the contents, of course, got that, you know, and it tells, and you might make sure the page numbers are right. I had started it in a book and was going to do it in a book, and I thought, you know, this is too expensive, you know, with paper
Right.
and ink.
Because I remember when I
So-
met you, you had the book,
Yeah.
but you had a lot of papers. You hadn't had it organized.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of work
Yeah, I've done
in
lot
a
of work.
relatively
See,
short
what I
time.
did, see, because I had, would end one, and then I started a chapter here and maybe have a blank page.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I got all the page numbers changed. I decided, no, I don't need to do that. I need to don't need to waste that space.
Do the CD.
So, but anyway, this here, check and see if the numbers are right.
Okay.
I've checked and checked, but I may have missed something. Anyway, and then introductions and definitions into the book. And this is my introduction and telling all about it.
So what? Just so that these guys can hear, what emphasis do you put on the definitions? Because I know how important they are.
The
Can you let them know how important?
Well, they are really important. Let me get out here to the definitions here. Let's see. Yeah, like de facto is one definition. De facto is in fact, indeed, actually. This phrase is used to characterize an officer, a government, a past action, or a state or of affairs which must be accepted for all practical purposes, but is illegal or illegitimate.
Which is our government is de
Yeah.
facto.
Yeah, thus an office, position, or status existing under a claim or color of right such as de facto corporation. In this sense, it is a contrary of de jure, which means rightful, legitimate, just, or constitutional. Say, I'm de jure, you're de jure. Y'all are de jure, because you're descended from Europe. Even if you came over here yesterday,
Right.
you're still citizens and belong here.
Now,
Because
when
you're
you
same
keep-
race.
Do you still have to prove that via your genealogy to the courts to show you're coming from Europe, or do they just
No.
accept it?
No, I didn't have to show any of that, in courts or anything.
Okay.
So,
They were good. They were
Yeah.
good on that.
I did go to the post office. I tell about it in here, and I was gonna send off for something, forget what it was. And, they wanted my driver's license for ID.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't have one, because I had deliberately let it expire.
Right.
Because that's another way the government has of controlling you. So anyway, I said, I don't have one. He said, well, I need somebody to identify you. And I said, you mean somebody came over here from some other country? Might have been here a month?
Right.
I've been here since the revolution, my ancestry, you know, so he wouldn't accept it. I said, okay, I'll be back shortly. So I went and bought me a little tape recorder. And I went, I stood in line, and then he said, well, didn't you just leave? I said, yeah. I said, I'm back. And I had turned on my tape recorder. It had the light. He could tell I was recording it. So I said, now I want to, you know, you accept this, my ID, who I am. And he said, okay, because he didn't want to be recorded.
So what did you give him for an ID?
I don't remember. I'll probably have it in here. That's why I keep everything.
Keep
I
it all
forget
in there.
Yeah. But I think I tell about it. I probably do tell about it in the book. You know, so it's quite a journey.
I
How
know.
did the government wrong you that caused you to want to sue them?
What?
What did the government do to cause you to want to sue them?
To sue the government? Just because I know things are wrong, you know.
So they did
It's
something.
wrong because the government, the people, are the de jure citizens. We are the people. We are in control of this country. Not criminals and crooks,
Right.
you know, but solid citizens. Okay, then you have the government comes in, and they start passing all this idiot stuff to put us under control
Agreed.
and to take every dime they can out of our pocket.
Absolutely.
And that's why basically it said, you know, it's wrong. It's just wrong. And anything that's wrong, I feel like I gotta fight it. I guess that came from my dad.
So what was the first thing you did to sue them for? Do you remember what it is? How did you?
Let me see what I have it down here. Let's
Yeah.
see. Petition. My posterity. Let me go down. Posterity betrayed. How to explain this? If I go to. Or this tells about how our the posterity has been betrayed
Right.
by the government. And the preamble to the Constitution for the United States of America, and to get into all of that. Anyway, and then classes of citizenship. There are classes of citizenship.
Right.
There is de jure citizenship, and there is black citizen, de facto citizenship.
Right.
And unfortunately, they can't do anything about it, you know, because they are not descended from here. They're not
Right.
descended from Europe. But this is on the blessings of liberty.
And that ties in with the contract. Just for the tape, that ties into the contract and how it was written, and the contract being the Constitution.
Yeah.
It left certain people out at that time of how it was interpreted.
Yeah. Well, see, it's a difference because there's a citizenship,
Mhm.
but which is basically a de jure citizenship, the original citizenship.
Which is above the 14th
It's
Amendment,
above
right?
the 14th Amendment.
Right.
Now, the people, see, like when you're Anglo,
Right.
Saxon, you know, our race. Okay, our race is the people that established this country,
That signed off on the Constitution.
and they created the government.
Right.
The government did not create us. We created the government, which means they are not sovereign over us. We are sovereign over them.
Right.
The only time they have any control over us is if we harm someone or we harm their property. And I make a point not to harm anyone or harm their property. I have no desire to harm anyone
Right.
or harm their property. So we are in control in this country. But the government has dumbed us so down, people don't realize. They think they're subjects of the government. We're not subjects of the government.
I think it might be mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, like the government's power requires the consent of the government. When they, like you said, you pointed out, you know, they're doing this wrong, they're doing that wrong, they're taxing us to extinction,
They
all
are.
these things, we don't consent. So their power doesn't really exist as long as
It really doesn't exist except they have dumbed us down.
the general public.
And the general public has been dumbed down, and that's through the educational system. Because our schools do not teach the way they used to teach. I know when Daddy went to school, he told me how it was in the end. It was the truth. But now they create what they consider the truth.
Manufactured.
They manufacture it.
They've been changing
And they're
what they teach a lot.
all along.
over
And they're
the
getting
last
worse and
100
worse and
years.
worse. Look at the kids now coming out of school.
Mhm.
You know, look at them now.
On the different subjects, America is like 28th in the world at this, and 14th in the world at that,
Yeah.
26th in the world at
And it
this.
used to be like number one.
Yeah.
It was way at the
A long
top, you know.
So in the class of citizenship, does it go in through the 14th Amendment where it established the de facto and the personhood?
See, there's the original citizens, the de jure citizens, that's us.
The people, right?
The 14th Amendment citizens, or people that are not of European descent, they're basically black.
Right.
You know, they cannot ever be the de jure citizens. Because it was the de jure citizens that created this country. Our ancestors.
Could you not go back and say because the Constitution says all men are created equal? Pull that in?
I don't think, they're not created equally, really, though. They aren't. You know, when you think about it, some people are more intelligent than other people.
Right.
And the black people were brought over here as slaves,
Right.
and they have never been the same as our race.
And even the statutes say
Yeah.
that they're not treated
Yeah.
the same. And this is law we're
Now,
talking
on a
about.
Christian standard, it's different.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, 'cause on a Christian standard, there's no difference. If they're Christians, they're Christians.
Right. And just because we're recording, this is the difference between law, not how we feel, and the Bible, not how we feel, and what is,
Yeah.
and how we feel, which is we feel everybody's equal. But when you separate the three different ways to look at it, and you look at it in law, this is what law is and how they're classified.
Yeah.
And then we look at it and say, well, they don't have a right to do this and that. But if someone of the black race actually studied this, they actually have a leg to stand on, I think, with what they're saying as we do want to be equal and have equal rights and we want to be protected. But you guys are avoiding the fact that we're not protected. And I
Well-
see it kind of that way too.
Yeah. Well, I'd say they probably have equal rights now
Right.
under the Constitution, you know, now that since it's progressed. But they don't have the same. They're not the same
Right.
because they weren't the founders of this nation. You know, and like I said, I've got some good black friends. I mean, I love them dearly.
Right.
But that doesn't change the fact that my
That's how the law
ancestors
sees it. Yeah.
created this country, not theirs, you know. But they're welcome over here, so long as they want to be good, solid citizens. You know, this country don't want to
Right.
be stealing from everybody and all this kind of stuff, you know.
Right.
But anyway, this kind of goes on down to classes of citizenship. This it goes on down here too a lot. And then the next one is the right to travel, and this is the good one.
We were just talking about that,
There
right,
you go.
Lori? That's right.
Memorandum.
This is the one that this guy's interested in on this subject.
King James Bible, John 8:32 says, "And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." The right to travel and to have full usage of one's property are basic God-given rights.
Not something that can be
The
permanently
government
licensed.
doesn't have the right to tell you what you can or cannot do, where you can or cannot go,
That's right.
or how much money you spend on your car, or anything else. It's not their job. It's God's job. God gave us that right. It's a God-given right. You know, when you go in on into this, get into de jure here, blessings of liberty, the right to travel and to have full usage of one's property are basic, God-given, unalienable rights secured under the Blessings of Liberty Clause of the preamble of the United States Constitution of 1787 to we the people and their posterity. A private automobile, van, pickup truck, motorcycle, etc. that is owned by a member of the posterity who is a de jure citizen as is such property, and the de jure citizen has full constitutionally secured usage rights to it.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you pay for it.
Yeah.
If you're still paying for it, when somebody
You can't
has-
steal it.
you know, in Black's Law definition says de jure is descriptive of a condition in which there has been total compliance with all requirements of the law, of right, legitimate, lawful, by right, and just title. In this sense, it is contrary to de facto. It may also be contrasted with de gratia, in which case it means as a matter of right, as de gratia means by or favor. Again, it may be contrasted with de acquiescence, I can't pronounce that, here meaning by law. as the latter means by equity. That's Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, page 425. See, I've looked all this stuff up. Posterity, all the blood descendants of a person, common law meaning, in a direct line to the remotest generation.
So that's posterity is actually the direct bloodline.
The direct
That's what
bloodline to the remotest generation, you know. And that's European, Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, you know, it's our race. And we've been privileged to be that race. Anyway, it goes in, after we, the people, won the war against England, they ordained and established a constitution for the United States of America, 1787, with its Bill of Rights, which created the federal government. See, federal government didn't create us. With its Bill of Rights, when the other states entered the Union, they all entered on equal footing with the original 13 states. Maxim of law, the created is never greater than the creator.
And that's the one thing people really need to study are the
Yeah.
maxims of law. That's the
This
basis.
has got a lot of stuff in it. And then petition for my declaratory judgment. This is where I file my petition for my declaratory judgment.
And what were you petitioning?
Let me pull it up.
Okay. I'm going to try to raise
I
Thomas.
I wanted a declaratory judgment of my status of citizenship. It says on February the 10th, 1995, I filed suit against the federal, state, and county governments to correct and clarify my true status of citizenship as de jure, with inalienable rights, and not a de facto citizenship with equal civil rights in the State District Court of Fort Bend County, Texas, 240th Judicial District, pursuant to the Uniform Declaratory Judgments Act, Civil Practice and Remedies Code, and we give that in Code, Title 2, Chapter 37, Section, and I'll go ahead and explain that. The Declaratory Judgment Act provides broad powers of construction in courts to enable parties to determine their relative rights without waiting until they have suffered irreparable damage. See, and I've researched all that.
There's a lot in that statement.
Yeah, it just goes on down. I'll talk about petition declaratory judgment, and then the removal to federal court. See how it got removed.
So they took it out of the county and state and actually pulled it into federal?
Yeah, I don't remember if I did or them. Let me see. I was going to read the first of it and see. It's been so many years ago.
I'm going to see if I can raise Thomas as well.
I have allergies or something bothering me today.
Hold on, Ann, I'm on the phone.
Come on, pull up. Not responding. Why aren't you responding?
I know. Yeah.
There's the program. Oh, there it is, finally. Oh, removal to federal
No idea what
district
he's on the
court.
phone for.
Let's see who removed it.
Probably to talk to someone.
That's who he's on the phone with. I don't like
okay.
him.
Here's what it says here. I never got to file my positive ID in state district court because on August 13th, 1996, Federal District Judge Lynn N. Hughes erroneously allowed the Assistant United States Attorney Gerald L. Meyer to remove my case from State District Court to U.S. District Court, in spite of the United States Supreme Court ruling.
So what did the Supreme Court rule? Because I know you went before the Supreme Court
Yeah, I
too.
went back to Supreme Court too. Now this is removal to the Federal District Court.
So, question, you went before the Supreme Court before you went to the District Court?
No, I went to the District Court first.
And then to the Supreme
And
Court?
the District Court first, and then I guess it went to the Supreme Court
Okay.
on it.
Like
And
the
of
United
course,
States.
they
Supreme Court?
wouldn't listen to it.
They can't hear it because the District Court's the only one that's close to common law.
Yeah.
But the Supreme Court can hear the common law because they're under the Constitution.
Yeah.
And they're really the only court left that's not administrative
Yeah.
that can hear the common law
Yeah.
now, from what I understand.
But I got a lot of this before Judge Lynn Hughes, and he listened to me.
He has to.
Yeah.
You were proven over him,
Yeah.
so he has to.
So anyway, it was, and then here's a trial transcript I've got here, you know. And then, because you can read the whole trial transcript. And then appeal to the Fifth Circuit. I appealed it to that.
So what was their holdup? What when you were suing them to become a de jure citizen, right? That's what you were.
Yeah, I was already a de jure citizen. I was trying to make them to acknowledge
Yes.
Okay.
that
So
I'm a de jure citizen.
when you're through that and they're throwing you back and forth between the courts,
Yeah.
what's their holdup and why are they throwing you back?
They don't want to acknowledge. I think they don't want to acknowledge that they're not superior.
Right,
They are not superior over me.
right, and that you're de jure. So they
I'm
were
de
having.
jure. Yeah.
So
It wasn't their ancestors. My ancestors came over here and established this country. Your ancestors all established this country. You might not have been here,
right.
but it was our people that established this country, and not some form of government that established the country.
And they just didn't want to establish you were the de jure, and so they're
No.
throwing you back and
Yeah,
around.
they don't want de jure because they want to be de jure, but they're not.
So what type of citizen did they want to establish you as? Were they telling you what you were?
Well, I guess they just want me to be a common 14th Amendment, I guess.
14th Amendment citizen, yeah.
But I'm not, and I'm not ever going to be, and they'll kill me before I will be a 14th Amendment.
Right.
Because I won't accept it.
So when they threw you all the way up to the Supreme Court, and that's where the final ruling happened, right?
Mm.
What came out of it in that ruling? What was
Well,
the
they
actual?
really they ignored it. The Supreme Court they ignored it.
they
They
didn't,
were no, they ignored it.
but that you went before them, right?
Yeah, I think I did. I'll have to look up and see
Yeah.
because it's been so many years.
Yeah.
When you get old, this is the Fifth Circuit. Let me go to the Supreme Court here.
Supreme Court.
Appeal to
We
the
don't
here's
wanna read
appeal
all
to the
this.
Supreme Court.
Get this
Yeah.
out of here.
This is Chapter 8, Appeal to the Supreme Court.
Because you finally got acknowledged, didn't you?
Not on paper, I guess, for them.
You never will on paper.
No, my case kind of got just left in limbo.
Right. They
They
always.
don't want to acknowledge it
Right.
because they're liars.
Right.
And I'm not. I am the juror citizen, and I proved it.
Right.
You know, by the blood of my ancestors, they fought and died for this country. You know. Anyway, this is a little waiver here. Let me see what I get here. See what the first words of this are. So you can read all this. It's going to be interesting reading. This is a waiver and all that. That they sent a waiver. They didn't want me to do this. They didn't want to accept this.
Uh-uh.
And then I was called a terrorist.
Right.
Don't I look like a terrorist to you?
They love to use that word when you bring up valid points.
Huh?
They love to use that term when you bring up valid points.
Yeah, that's
When
for
you
sure.
disturb them, they use that word.
Yeah, they don't like that. This is my petition for writ of certiorari with the Supreme Court of the United States. And let me see what it says here. Question presented for review. 1. May Statute 28 U.S.C. 1331, 1346, 1441, or 1442 allow government agencies to remove a case from state court to federal court, enabling federal court to dismiss case for failure to state a claim and thereby deny the petitioner's constitutionally guaranteed unalienable right to redress a grievance. That was one of my answers. Another one, may the federal court hear an issue concerning to whom pertains the original common law de jure citizenship of the Constitution for the United States of 1787, and whether that de jure citizenship was destroyed with the advent of the 14th Amendment of 1868. No. My citizenship wasn't destroyed with the 14th Amendment.
So you actually put that in there.
Yeah.
Huh.
Now this went to court. And the 3, may the federal government impose upon those who are of the original de jure citizenship without their full knowledge and consent the de facto artificial citizenship created by the 14th Amendment. My citizenship wasn't created by the government
It was created by God.
because I'm not black.
Yeah.
You know, but theirs was, mine wasn't, you know. And it goes down and covers all that. And then traffic court. Oh, well, this is a good one. And I beat that one, boy. I got to tell you about that one. I was driving home from the printer's office, and I had just had printed 50 copies